Yo guys, what's going on? Here is Vision SGN bringing you the first Call of Duty Zombies content to the channel. This video is very different to everything else that's already on my channel with regards to Warzone, Marvel Rivals, and even Minecraft. This content is more for me and just having footage, or more so just memories of playing, experiencing, and even enjoying Zombies content, which is what I wanted to share with you guys. So on that note, let's get right into it. So just as a general overview, first things first, before I get into the content itself of Zombies, I wanted to just elaborate on what the purpose of this content is for my channel. So just as a general history overview, I've been playing Zombies for around 17 years. I was one of the very first people who to be a part of this community from the very beginning, back in World at War, and wanted to embrace that by sharing some content of each of the maps, completing Easter eggs and high rounds and experiences over the years and so on, as many of these maps have brought me and many others in the community with some unforgettable memories that I've cherished and re-experienced many times over thanks to Zombies Chronicles and so on. I literally remember the first time I ever played Call of Duty Zombies back in sort of 2008-9 time. It was literally right after I completed the campaign, and I remember seeing the word zombies right on the main menu as soon as I finished it, and I was like, what is that? I need to go explore what that means. I even remember the specifics. It was like a Sunday evening, because I remember going to school the very next day. I must have been like 10 years old, 9 years old, and all I could think about was playing the next day, that terrifying experience of, and wanting to replay it over and over again, and wanting to know more and how to beat the game and all of that sort of stuff. That's what I remember very clearly, because that's what Zombies did. It made you scared, but at the same time, the better you got, the more you wanted to play and beat your personal best rounds or kills or whatever it may be. And this was just at the time when social media wasn't even big, and even YouTube itself, so you couldn't really rely on help from YouTube on guides or figuring out the maps and so on. You had to do it all by yourself and with the people you are playing with. But also, I even had older friends at school, so fortunately I had friends to play with at this time. But back then, playing with public matches and all of that was very cool, and meeting random players that you would never come across in today's game with the way sort of gaming is in this day and age. And I also met some cool gamers back then, as it was just a simpler time full of like-minded individuals who all wanted to achieve the same thing. It was just a simpler time, and I really wanted to sort of take a step back and start the channel with creating some YouTube zombie content, especially beginning right at the start with World at War, especially Nacht and Toten, because that's where it all began. So back to this video. For this episode and the future episodes, I thought it'd be very fitting to start the series from the beginning of Call of Duty Zombies. Nacht and Toten, one of the most iconic maps in the Zombies franchise. This map was actually a large multiplayer back in the day, known as the Airfield, and you could literally explore this exact structure right on the multiplayer map. But generally, as an experience for a Zombies player at 9 years old, this was something I could not get enough of, and created some unforgettable memories of people I would never sort of have seen ever again, but I still remember them to this day, 15 years or however long it's been. So it's just generally one of the best experiences. And as I explained, I remember the very first time playing this map, the zombies in general. I remember the weapons, the MG42, the Browning, the flamethrower, and of course the iconic ray gun. All of the legendary sound effects from back in the day just changing. Original Nazi zombies, the sound of the round changing itself, the perk machines later on, of course, because they weren't in the original map, and even the pack-a-punch right at the end with the Reese and stuff like that. Now back then, there was obviously no perks when this first came out. Of course, here I am playing on the Zombies Chronicles edition, which gobblegums exist, of course, thankfully, so I can have actually perks in this map, which back then it was a lot harder. You didn't have these things. You didn't have the Wonder Sphere and even Mule Kick in the spawn back in like you do in this game, in this Zombies Chronicles edition. But back then, the high round spot was above the spawn room, right next to the stairs where I am now. And the golden rule, which was very widely understood across every player who started playing this map, was to never open the stairs to my right. The spawn stairs were not to be opened. Although there were definitely different ways of playing or techniques for higher rounds, you could actually camp above like in the box room and simply just not by the door in the spawn room, but instead go up the stairs through the top floor and then sort of go down. But that wasn't the most desirable option, and people didn't really know this back then. And you have to remember, back then most of us were just kids or teenagers, so not everyone was smart enough to know that there was more going on with zombies than just pointing and shooting, and the actual strategy itself is what separated you from the casuals before perks existed and pack-a-punch and gobblegums and all of that stuff. So starting with Nacht, this is where it all began. A true masterpiece and a staple in the Zombies franchise. This map has reappeared in several different titles over the years, from Transit in BO2 all the way to Cold War in Die Machine. It's a household favorite due to its nostalgia, of course. Now, of course, when you rank what maps are best, this list varies from person to person. Some rank their list based on individual experiences at the time and their memories, which is completely fair. Some determine their list based on how significant the map was at the time in its peak. For example, this was the first map, and Darice was the revolutionary map, which elevated zombies and transcended it to a whole new level. So on some also ranked based on Easter eggs, or the coolest boss fights, or even some of the best high round strategy maps and so on, such as like Kino. It really depends on how you're going to rank each of the maps, but I would say due to this map being the very first and so nostalgic, it has to be up there, right, in one of there. Let me know down below in the comments on what you guys think on this map and where it ranks all time. The weapons back then were just so legendary, and even getting the things like the MG42 or a Browning out of the box was so crucial for getting a high round, because they hit hard. They had a huge ammo reserve, which you needed as there was no pack punch, of course. They were also just epic to use. They sounded so cool. They looked amazing. They shredded through zombie hordes so easily. And then, of course, the ray gun. Who didn't fall in love with this gun? It was and probably is the most iconic thing about zombies overall. It's what we all think of when you say zombies, one of the first things that come to mind. And then, of course, there was the things like the flamethrower flamethrower, which added a great cinematic effect to zombies, as well as also having to not rely on ammo, although it did of course overheat, but it was a cool weapon to have in the game. There was all of this sort of, also the sniper in the cabinet as well. I believe it was a Springfield or a Car 98 or something like that, but that was also fun to use as well. There's just so many other cool weapons back in the day that I remember so clearly and so well. And now on to the second map in the Zombies franchise, Verukt. Where to begin with this one? This map was legendary. I was very fortunate growing up as a gamer that my own dad played as a gamer himself, meaning that he understood and he was okay with me playing games at a young age, which is really cool. I didn't really appreciate at the time, but this meant I was able to get things like the DLCs. And back then, although they were called map packs originally, but this was really cool as this has started where it sort of started to pave the way and transcend COD and Zombies in itself into a whole new direction, adding perks into Zombies for the first time with this map, and with an interesting layout in itself, having 2 players spawn on each side of the map, so you all separate, and had a brand new aspect to the game of Zombies. Before, it was just a simple 4-man squad in a structure against the Zombies, but this map really developed and started building rivalry. Some players just wouldn't spend money, the selfish kind who just let the other half open the entire map and get to the power first. Therefore, the selfish kind would simply just use the same pathway once the spawn door was opened, and they would have all of this money to get boxes and so on, and be at an advantage versus you, and therefore get more kills and so on. This happened to me a few times as a kid, but I remember being a high school player at the time from the get-go. This never really hindered me as such, but it was definitely something I used to sort of hate and play against, and something I remember when I first played this map. It's just something that's always stuck with me. Something, these are the little things I guess you remember back then when smaller things like strategy were so much more crucial than they are today. Now this map brought us Jug, Double Tap, Speed Cutter, and of course Quick Revive, the original or OG perks in Zombies. Jug allowed players to take risks, make selfless plays. Quick Revive allowed us to keep those that were less skilled and just be able to stay in the game as much longer as they could, because you could repeatedly keep them up. Of course, they obviously just kept losing their perks anyways, but having the chance to be able to revive people quicker just meant that they had more of a chance. Double Tap and Speed Cutter allowed you to just kick ass, basically, and plain and simple, and stay in the fight just that much longer, allowing players to evolve and get better with the game. Verukt also brought us the things like the power as well for the first time, and things like bounce and betties, which are very unique to the map layout itself, that divided players, of course, as well, and tested us with both it be efficient with our points, as well as just generally with the survivability. This map was quite hard to navigate. I definitely remember at the time this map just being quite difficult, and something I didn't quite get the hang of really quickly, although I really enjoyed it and fell in love with it straight away, especially with the sound effects from like the perk machines and all of the different things about this map. It was just definitely a map that I stood out as being one of the harder maps. And like Nacht, this was actually also in multiplayer. It was called Asylum, which is actually one of my favorite maps of all time as a kid, especially on this game. World at War had so many amazing multiplayer maps, from maps like Upheaval, Dome, Outskirts, Roundhouse, and so many more. But playing the map online beforehand brought a whole new level of familiarity to playing this in Zombies, although there were definitely some creepy features, such as like the dentist chair and the bloody showers and kitchen areas, things that definitely kids shouldn't have seen at that age. Like, there's just a lot of gruesome stuff in this map with all the blood and all of the zombies, of course, in itself, in its entirety. It's just definitely something that I guess you shouldn't have seen at that age, but it's what grew this community, and this is where it all started. You can literally interact with the dentist chair, and you can hear the guy screaming or something, and it's literally just something creepy. Even today, at my age, it's still creepy to even hear. It's just eerie stuff like that I guess maybe shouldn't have had to experience at that age, but it's what developed us all and made us all into better players. Of course, this map does reappear in Revelations as well, which was a massive surprise to me when I first played Rev. I was very pleased to see both play and see this map obviously in the cycle, because there were some players who weren't as lucky as us and didn't get to experience this. So for them to be able to explore in the Revelations map itself, just to see Verukt in its entirety, and then of course in Chronicles itself you can play it, which is what obviously you're seeing in this clip right here, because this is what I'm actually playing, because it allowed younger generations or less fortunate players another chance to experience this epic map in all its entirety, as this map was a huge success at the time, and some players weren't so fortunate and didn't get to experience this. So I feel for them, but they did get their second opportunity, as this map, like I said, came out with the Chronicles, and of course was in Revelations. I think overall this map was just perfect. Very difficult at the time, as I said, to get a high round. Now, even now, as again, I've played it myself and tried getting a really high round. I don't like going past maybe around 25 or 30, because I guess it's just not that worth it. I'm not really into the high round scene anymore. I used to be. I'm more of an Easter egg player, but getting to play these maps again and just re-experience it was somewhat really fun for me to do, especially for the clips in this content. Like, even going back then to get a high kill round, even now, as I said, players are more used to things like Pack-a-Punch and more than 4 perks, but back then you won't remember what it feels like to survive without these features and getting by, praying maybe you'd be given a max ammo. It was just a terrifying experience back then, especially when you're backed up in a corner room like this, knowing that you're not going to have Pack-a-Punch weapons. It really does play on you as soon as you get to those high 20s, realizing that if you don't get a max ammo anytime soon, you're all going to be screwed, and it's every man for themselves and stuff like that. So unless you're gifted with the ability to train zombies, you definitely wouldn't have survived very long on this map, as it really tested your ability to navigate tight spaces and sort of train. That's sort of where the development of the idea or the terminology of training zombies came from. It's maps like this which really allowed players to thrive who could do it, and the strengths and weaknesses of certain players definitely did thrive, or sort of show really clearly who was really not that great at zombies at the time. And I guess it allowed players who weren't that great to develop really quickly. Of course, it was very very early in the franchise anyway. It was literally the first DLC that came out, or the map pack as I should say. But I am interested just generally in the future I would like to see how players, or just the community generally, sort of refers and remembers this map and maps like Shi No Numa, and see where they rank all time, not just against all the newer maps, but just generally in the order of all of the maps that were in World at War, maybe even up to maybe Black Ops 2, and where you'd actually rank some of these maps, because I think they're a bit almost forgotten. Some of these people, some of the players don't really know what these maps were like to play in their prime, and I guess that's where the whole ranking bias or criteria comes into play. It depends how you're going to form your list, or what you're going to rank them on, based off maybe, like I said, Easter egg experiences, or what the maps were like in their prime, high round potential, and all of these other factors. So I'd be interested to hear what other players think of this, but maybe we'll go over that in a future video. Let's just see how the content gets on with zombies in general. But let's go on to the next map in the series, the second DLC that came out, or map pack as I should say. This is for Shi No Numa, arguably the most forgotten of this game, or of its time, at least the most underrated in my opinion, but credit where credit is due. We got so many cool experiences with this map. We got the Wonderwaffle, or the Wunderwaffe, whatever people say in the German accent. I'm not going to try it again, but for the first time we got this special wonder weapon using the flogger trap as well, and with players already being so accustomed to perks and from the Verukt map itself, with the fact that perks changed on this map, with the spawn locations always changing between the 4 different huts, and not being guaranteed Jug from the very start, was already a quick setback to what it was like to not have Jug again, and not being guaranteed this exact perk, but being able to predict where it would land on the actual map itself was really where players were tested once again. Now, there was loads of different sort of high round strategies on this map. I don't really even know to this date which was the best high round spot on this entire map. I have changed up many different times with coming back to this map. I can't even remember, because I remember sometimes you didn't open the spawn gate in the spawn room itself. Sometimes you just stayed in spawn and you just went down the stairs and you kept the side door open. You sometimes stayed there. Like, I think for the most part when I played this map, I think whoever I was playing with, we kind of just picked one of the huts where the perk spawns. Maybe it was Jug, I don't even remember, and we just sort of stayed there. I don't really think, unless someone can tell me otherwise in the comments where the actual spot was, I can't really remember where exactly everyone sort of stayed. I mean, in this gameplay and the higher round strategies, I've sort of found I sort of stay by where the actual sort of lift itself is, or the gondola, or the sort of zip wire. If you sort of sit on the back of that, on the edge of that, where you can't really fall off unless you use a Raygun Mark II, or unless you just sort of lean back or walk backwards, you can sort of stay there, I guess, because it gives you a good long sort of line of sight. But I guess I can't really put a name on where exactly the best high round strategy was in the most part, because there were 4 different huts. Some of the huts were definitely better to survive in based on the sort of shape and the layout of them, but also the pathway in order to get to them was sometimes better or worse, depending on which one you have. Because I remember there was a lot of water on this map. This is the first time we ever had water, and of course also the box as well. The box moved around just like with Verukt. This was like when you started to learn that obviously on Nacht the box was always in the same spot, but on Verukt it moved around, and then in this map of course it changed to so many different, I think it was 6 or 7 maybe different spots on this map where the box different changed. But this spot right here under the stairs was also a really good spot. I don't really remember this being a really good high round spot. It's definitely an early game strat, but definitely need to know what other players think or sort of thought of this map in general, and as well as the high round strategy. Let me know if you guys are aware, or if you guys did play this back in the day. What was the high round spot? Where did people go? Because I mean, with this already being such a difficult map all time, I'd say this is definitely one of the hardest trout maps for sure, with the water aspect for the first time slowing you down, and with the perk spawns changing every game, as well as the mystery box itself. This really spiced things up, and I think often is why some players didn't necessarily really enjoy this map, as it was just so hard or more difficult, and the casual players themselves definitely would have struggled more on this map. I do believe we also got the Hellhounds for the first time on this map, with this being a great addition to the survivability for both early and late games, with having a max ammo at the end of the round, of course, for this Hellhound, or dog round as people call it, but also added more of a terrifying aspect to the game, especially as a young age back in 2009, over 15 years ago now. But definitely, I think if you were there for this moment and for this game and this map itself, if you was playing this during this time and got to experience this map for the first time during its prime without any of other references of newer CODs, you'd definitely be in the same boat as myself and a few others in this community when we say this map was epic, especially in its prime, and it continued to push the game in an already successful direction, building on the storyline with Takeo, Nikolai, Dempsey, and Richtofen starting here and preparing us for the finale, which brought us to Reese, a map I'm going to go over in a separate video, as I do believe that map is arguably the most iconic map of all time in terms of transcending zombies in itself and really elevating it to a whole new level. So it only feels right to spend a bit more time and detail on that map separately, as it's deserved that right in my opinion. But in summary, zombies in COD started with something special within a generation of young gamers during what is now referred to as the golden era. This was literally right near the beginning of it all. Like, for me, World at War will always be a top 5 Call of Duty for me, for what it did for me as a kid, its memories, for all of the things I have remembered about the game, what it means to the COD community, and more so zombies Zombies itself, starting here and hopefully continues to be great with the likes of Black Ops 6 and soon to be Black Ops 7. I think when we look back at gaming in general in the future, a lot of us who are here from this sort of in this period of time will cherish this forever, and these maps in general as to what they mean for us as zombie gamers. But anyways, enough of the preach and what this video is. That's it for this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content and the very first of many zombies videos that I'm going to be bringing to this channel. And also, I hope I haven't hit any nerves with this being a little bit of a nostalgic flashback of zombies in general. Simpler times, man. The good old days, the golden era as we refer to it. But as a reminder, if you guys did play these maps back in their prime, what did you guys think of them? I'm actually really interested to hear if you guys did play this during this time, or you guys didn't, and maybe you played them later in Black Ops 3. Let me know, guys, what you guys think of the maps. Where would you rank them in order of sort of the top 4 from Nacht to Reminisce? What would you say was the best or the worst map? And also, maybe from World at War to maybe the Black Ops 2 Zombies. I'm really interested to hear what you guys' thoughts are on World at War Zombies in general. I value the experience of playing these maps very highly, and I definitely have them and hold them in high regards because that's what they did. They really paved the way and started something really big in the zombies community itself. So it has to be up there, right, in the all-time list just on that experience. But if you're going to base off a different criteria, then of course the list changes. So it just depends on exactly what you're basing your list off of. But anyways, that's pretty much it. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, as I said, or tips and tricks about even playing zombies itself, or even any suggestions about future videos that you want to see, let me know down below in the comments and I'll get right back to you. I'm Visionist Gen. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.